Napa know-how.
The Napa guy knows not to judge a man by his car's multicolored paint job or absence of modern gadgetry. Who cares if it's technically old enough to vote and the windows are powered by the strength of your left arm? Your monthly payment is zero, and it'll stay that way. Because with over 500,000 parts and a little Napa know-how, you can keep anything on the road. She may not be pretty, but she's all yours. That's Napa know-how.
Napa know-how.
Blog Talk Radio.
Good morning. This is your host, Llorraine Neithardt, and you have reached Venus Unplugged, your virtual heartbreak hotel. Started a little early today because I was up and filled with fire. My dreams gave me fire of the imagination. So when that happens, I wake up in a very different state, where it's like, wow, what great mystery is going to happen today. So I thought what would be interesting is, how do we work with imagination, and what is imagination? Imagination is not fantasy. It's a realm. It's an actual realm between the worlds of the conscious and the unconscious. It's living and it's alive, and we all have it. Now, do we call upon it? Not necessarily. We know that we can call upon imagination because people can imagine the worst disasters ever. That is use of the imagination. Not in a positive way, but just the horrors of, well, what if that happened, and what if this happened, and what, these worrowful states. Now, if we used our capacity for internal tyranny and turned that around into the possibilities of calling on the muse, so the muse, it cannot be willed, it can only be welcomed. So if we create a ritual or a prayer or poetry or a dance or a song, something that brings in the muse, which is in charge of the creation, the creativity, the ability. There's a marvelous little book. It's called The War of Art, and it's Break Through the Blocks That Win Your Inner Creative Battles by Stefan Pressfield, Pressfield. I'm just going to read a quote about the muses from this book. It's a fabulous book. It's a kick-ass book. It's about, if you got resistance, buy this book and read it. He'll be right in your face getting rid of that resistance, because it's all about fear, and he helps people just recognize that fear. But this is just a page on evoking the muse, part 2. Okay, so he talks about a friend that he met. Before I met Paul, I had never heard of the muses. He enlightened me. The muses were 9 sisters, daughters of Zeus and Mimosa, and here memory. Their names were Clio, Ario, Thalia, Tepescar, Calepio, Polymania. You shouldn't have done this first thing in the morning. Euterpe, Memory, and Urania. Their job is to inspire artists. Each muse is responsible for a different art. There's a neighborhood in New Orleans that the streets are named after the muses. I lived there once and had no idea. I thought they were just weird names. So here he quotes from Socrates in Plato's Phaedrus for the noble effort of heaven-sent madness. So he talks, so this is what Plato has to say. The third type of possession at madness is possessed by the muses. When there seizes a gentle and virgin soul, it requires to be an inspired expression in lyric, in other sorts of poetry, and glorifies countless deeds of the heroes for the old instructions of posterity. But if a man comes to the door of poetry untouched by the madness of the muses, believing the technique will be made him a good poet, he and his same compositions never reach perfection, but are utterly eclipsed by the performance of an inspired madman. So the Greek way of apprehending the mystery was to personify it. The ancestors sensed powerful primordial forces in the world. We would call them archetypes. To make them approachable, they gave human faces. They called them Zeus and Apollo and Aphrodite. American Indians felt the same way, but rendered them animalistic, as in the bear and the teacher and the hawk and the messenger, or coyote trickster. Our ancestors were keenly cognizant of the forces and energies whose seats were at the material sphere and in a loftier, more mysterious one. What did they believe about the higher reality? First, they believed that death had no existence. The gods were immortal. The gods, not unlike humans, are infinitely more powerful. To define their will is futile. To act towards heaven with pride is to calm down calamity. Time and space display an altered existence in this higher dimension. The gods travel swift as thoughts. They tell the future, some of them, and through the playwright, Agonos, they tell us this alone is denied to God, the power to undo the past. Yet the immortals can play tricks with time, as we ourselves sometimes do in dreams and visions. The universe, the Greeks believed, was not indifferent. The gods take an interest in human affairs and intercede, good or ill, in our designs. The contemporary view is that all of this is charming, but it is preposterous. No, it's not. The answer is to bring forth the muse, to be able to call on this muse, to be able to, that they're real, and we need to either find the original call upon the muse in the Greek mysteries, or what I've been thinking of is kind of how I do it. Because the muses cannot be willed. They can be welcomed. So how would we welcome in the muse, which will lead us into imagination, just like love. Love begins in the imagination. We imagine the beloved, what that would look like, and then, of course, when they arrive, we put that imaginary suit or personality or qualities onto the person, and then after about 6 months, we realize, well, that doesn't fit. But by then, we're really into a union state, and we begin to imagine another way. Okay, and we imagine, we bring in what is the real qualities of the beloved. Or we imagine we're going to write that great novel, and then we start. And that's rubbing two stones together, because it begins in the imagination, but the journey of the discipline to become the disciple of one's imagination, or to become the disciple of the muse, to call in. So we certainly can get a statue of a muse and put that on our desk or around us. But it's very important, before we're about ready to, we all have our rituals when we're going to approach anything. Okay, usually in the morning we get up, we have a cup of tea or coffee or something. That begins. And if we think we're not ritualistic, miss the coffee in the morning, or have to jump out of bed and run out without doing your morning ritual, and the day will feel a little off. And yes, it may be because you need to be jacked up by the tea or the coffee, or is it the actual ritual as we imagine ourselves into the day? That's very important. So is it the ritual of how we stumble around, or some people jump up and get ready? I'm not one of those. I'm a stumbler. And I slowly need to move into the reality, because I know I'm coming from a sacred realm. I'm coming from the dream realm. And since that is very much part of my being and my work and all that I live by. I know to just jump up is, number one, is to feel like giving myself a nervous breakdown. It's too much of a radical different energy that I need that time. So I get up very early. I'm not functioning on this realm, but I am functioning on the realm of imagination between the dream and reality. So my ritual is to write down my dreams. If I don't remember them, then I just muse. I allow whatever is floating around, images, feelings, remembrances, I give that a place, because I've just come from the realm of the sacred. I've come from at the foot of the dream maker, which is the divine. And that's very important. If you don't remember your dreams, or you think you don't remember your dreams, then you start as a disciple, as a discipline of your own dream, and just write down a few words of what you think you remember, or a color, or you feel a cloud, or you feel something. Just give it a word or two. Eventually the words will be built, and eventually you'll begin to remember the dreams. Because after a while, that second language, the language of the soul, it wants to be spoken. It wants to be heard. It comes every night, 3 and 4 times. There are some beliefs in the dreams that the first few hours of sleep, we're dreaming, but we're dreaming from the different organs, what the heart is feeling, what the liver is feeling. And then gradually the personal dreams, the archetypal dreams come, from 4 to 7 in the morning. So there are many, many different theories of dreams, but everyone agrees we all dream. We don't remember. But that is another language of the living imagination. So with the imagination and calling in the muse, have fun and prepare. Just like you would prepare for, guests coming to dinner or a party or something that you very much want. You get out your best outfit, and you organize. That's always a good start. Is get your closet organized. I mean, that's a huge ritual, but that's a preparation. And when we know we're doing something, it's not like, oh, I just got to clean out this closet now, or whatever we need to clean out, or edit whatever we need to edit. Make it a poem, a movement, a prayer to the muse that you're doing this in honor of, to make room, to bring forth. As I clean out and edit my 3,000 books, which is taking me months and months, because then I sit down and I read them and I forget, and I love this, and it goes on and on. So I knew it would take me. I gave myself 6 months to a year. Just reality and knowing my relationship and my editing process with these beloved friends, that some have to go and some are never going. So that's in preparation to the muse, to the writer. All right. So part of preparing it to invite your imagination in, first and foremost, lovingly apologize if you have banished your imagination. So often our imagination has been kind of eclipsed or taken from us, or we don't use it because we believe what other people have said. When children have enormous imaginations. So they're in that realm. They have, they don't even need a password. They've got instant access to that realm of imagination. But how often are we told when we're children, oh, stop that, you're just imagining that. Oh, that's just your imagination. Oh, you and your wild imagination. Which is very shaming. And instead of being helped between that realm of the inner talk and the storytelling and the imagination and the richness of that symbolically, we're told, shut it off, cut it down. That's only your imagination. Only your imagination. It's the soul speaking. It's the realm of the soul images. So often people have then and will just shut that down. Oh, no, I can't say that. That's just imagination. No, that has a reality. It has a symbolic reality. We need to know how to work with it. It's like if I'm in session and I'm seeing that somebody is really trying. They're telling one story, but their imagination wants to tell its side, how it is, why is this happening? It's bringing these images in to the ego that look like a disaster, but to the imagination, it's bringing in story. So usually if you say to somebody, well, what do you imagine? They get frightened or they take offense or it's not, well, if it's imagination, it's not true. And I know very well it's true. So what I will say, and what you can say to yourself is, okay, so what's your fantasy? What's your fantasy of what the resolution would be, or what's the fantasy of what you think is going on? And that automatically opens the realm of imagination to the person. They'll allow themselves to have a fantasy, which they think is, kind of a make-believe story, but there's great symbolic truth in these fantasies because they come from the realm of the imagination. And then from the fantasy, I can decode what their imagination is trying to bring forth. What really is being said? And then the aha and the, oh, wow, I never looked at it that way, that starts to get active. So instead of just the same old story, we use the imagination to find out what it means. So first we're going to begin with an apology to the muse, to our imagination, and we're going to apologize that we've accepted other people's banishment. They might not have an imagination that's working, but you've got one that's working. And if it's not working, you're going to ask the muse to help you begin to understand this. So one of the ways that we can do this, or one of the ways that I do, is I prepare the environment, okay? Because imagination is alive. It's a living principle. And the more libido we give to the imagination, the greater it will flow. So libido is that living force. It's like eros. We blow. When we add more to the story, or even when we're telling a story, it's usually exaggerated because that holds the captivity of the audience of one or your own inner audience. It's not a negative. It is imagination. Or we'll bring in humor, and humor will always is the dark side of imagination. We laughed our hardest when the shadow is involved. When we really have a belly laugh, oh, believe me, it's a shadow aspect that we all recognize. So we're going to prepare, we're going to bring the imagination in, we're going to know that it's a living principle, and that the more we bring to it, the more we enliven it through our acts, all right, the more the imagination is going to be present. So let's say, for instance, and of course at first people can feel very silly. See, I don't. I just jump into it totally because I know it's beauty and I know it's truth. So it's like, okay, come on, let's just have some fun, all right? So let's say you can set a dinner table or a breakfast table for two, one for you and one for your imagination, one for your muse, and really do it. Take out the best you've got, as if you're having the most heavenly guest you could ever imagine. And those beautiful plates or dishes or stemware that you save for that very special party that you never have, take them out. Use them. Take what is beautiful. or it doesn't, whatever it is that you think is beautiful, make a picnic, do imagine this, and that you're going to set that table. And then you're going to call in the muse and the imagination, and then just talk to that invisible being that sits across from you, set at your beautiful table. So often in Scripture and in holy works, it's always or even in dreams. If we dream of eating, or we dream we're at a feast, it is always the feast. It is the holy feast. It is the one where we eat of the divine. So eating and feasts and preparing for tables or preparing for dinner parties, really important imaginative stuff. Because even if we're preparing for a friend to come over for a cup of tea, we set the table, we get the pretty things out. We're preparing, and we're already having a conversation with the friend who's coming. What we want to say, what is it about? This is all evoking the imagination. So you can set a tea party, okay? You can do a bath. So you're setting your sacred bath. You put in, 7 tablespoons of salt, which is a purification. You can do bubbles and candles and your special flowers. Okay, throw in a few little, no stems. That hurts. Just purifying a bath. You can do that on your birthday, which is a holy bath. We're evoking in the imagination, through the imagination, the muse to protect us and to heal us, okay? Or we can do it the date of our birth. Let's say I'm born on the 22nd, so the 22nd of any month, I can imagine in my holy day what I need to look at, what I need to feel, what I'm not paying attention to. The imagination will tell this, not in a negative way. It whispers, it tells, it foretells, it reflects. It's a very, very powerful aspect of consciousness. Also, we can do, I don't know if anybody knows active imagination is we're talking with dream figures, okay? Or mind mapping, where you just take one word and then you can Google mind mapping and you'll find out how to do it, and then you put all these associations to the word. You can sit by a tree and you can feel that it's alive. Sometimes I just change furniture around because I want to create a certain setting, or sit by a window. Just look out the window and then imagine that's calling it in. And we can use books and photographs and Pinterest and fabrics, and we can, sometimes I just do outfits. I get dressed up. I literally get dressed up. I take out jewelry and I put it all on, and I walk all around, and I give it life. You can wear a hat or a turban. It could be naked and with sparkles on. And if the inner bully is saying this is ridiculous, and you say, no, it's not. It's imagination. One time I had a whole party, and it was living imagination. It was marry yourself. And this wonderful artist, she came in and she has these rituals, and each woman married herself. It was amazing what happened. It was, I am my own bride. So it's about being original according to your own nature. It's about opening to wonder. That, wow, when we see something, because that's really what this whole trip is about. We want to open to wonder, whether it's through our spirituality, through what our dreams tell us, to falling in love, to writing a book, to dancing a jig, whatever it is. It's opening to wonder. That's the longing. So when we can open to that, or you can see imagination where Like I said, I will ask a client, I'll say, okay, I'll start this, and I'll make up something, all right? Then I say, okay, so now finish the story. Now, if a person whose imagination is active and alive, they'll be able to finish it. They'll make up the rest. Now, if it's blocked, they'll be dumbfounded. They'll be like, I don't know what to say. Well, just say anything. Say anything. You see, because in the evoking of the imagination, it's a realm. It's not, once upon a time, that evokes the imagination. It is a sacred realm that lives between the realms. It is always there. So, and it's also about, it's not about opposites. It's not about either or. It's about end. So when you ask yourself, so what's your fantasy? What do you imagine? In this way you can discern if you write that down. Because in inviting it through the muse, through poets, through madmen, through crazy wisdom, whatever it is, that power of imagination is operating all the time. We have to pay attention. We just focus. It's a diffused focus. When we hear ourselves with the self-talk, that's imagination. We hear it. We listen. And the love begins through imagination, the love of ourselves. If we imagine, the inner child, you get a picture of yourself as a child, and people think it's like, oh, that's like silly. It's not silly, because the picture of yourself as an inner child is the essence of your soul. That the inner child connects to the divine child, which is very, very real. You see, the thing about truth is not always factual. We can't prove it with a fact, but it is still a truth. So we're all so good at imagining the worst, so reverse it. Reality follows imagination. That's very important. Reality follows imagination. So if we can image it in, if we have an idea and we start to add on to it, by preparing the environment, by wearing an outfit of the sage or the writer, or putting, this is my lucky pen. We can assign objects to be our lucky pieces. As soon as we touch this, we open to the imagination. That whole once upon a time stuff. All right, or we set up the feng shui in our desks to create with. Okay. And see, in the imagination and in the reality that follows the imagination, we abandon what you know for what you don't know. So you can write down, well, I know this, but I don't know this. I know this, but I don't know that. There's another writing exercise. I remember, I don't remember. I remember this, and then we write down what we don't remember, because that's part of the imagination. It is always there, and it's very natural. People go, oh, I don't want to imagine that. That's imagining the worst. But then you find out, well, in the worst is the solution. Because you're so afraid of that worst that you're blocking the very essence of the imagination that you need for the solution. And so that's how imagination works. So truth is not written in stone. It's written in your hearts, or it's written on the wind. So tell yourself your secrets. Tell yourself, reveal a long-forgotten desire. Bring in the imagination. And in bringing in the imagination, tell yourself your secrets and let them live. Don't judge them. Anything that comes from the realm of the imagination is holy. And we're allowed to have that. And forgive yourself for believing the adults that said, or the other children, or whoever said, oh, that's just your imagination. Get real. Be practical. Blah, blah, blah. Forgive them and forgive yourself and open to the imagination. It's there. It's present. It's around you. It's ever present. And it's holy. And it doesn't care, saint or sinner. It's being used all the time and influencing us all the time. So may this week be filled with absolutely imagination, and wherever you draw it from, invite it forth, bring it further, and dance with it, and then write about it. Or just feel it or tape it. Do whatever it is that you want to do. Just don't tell people who don't have imagination that you've opened your imagination. Or if you want to see how trippy it is, just say, yeah, well, I was imagining this. And they'll go like, oh, okay. And then you'll say, okay, that person has no imagination. They're afraid of that factor. They're afraid to enter the place of unknown, that holy place in you. And holy doesn't mean good. Or, it's holy, it's full, it's rich, it's yours. It is your divine spark. Now go get it. Talk to you next week. Bye. Oh, actually, next week I'm not going to be here. I'm going to be in Fire Island. So you'll just have to sit with your imagination. Okay. Bye-bye.